That time of the week has returned where I'm going to make my picks for week 7 of the college football season. Before we get started though, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and make some picks for week 7 of the college football season. So the first game we're going to talk about happens on Thursday, as 4-1 Coastal Carolina will play against 4-1 James Madison. JMU is fresh off of losing to UL Monroe, and Coastal Carolina is quietly at 4-1. This game is somewhat underrated, and honestly, I think James Madison is going to bounce back and win in a big way. Going over to Friday, we talk about Memphis versus USF. This game is quietly going under the radar in the American, as USF has been a tough team to play this year, and Memphis is currently near the top of the conference. Memphis has high expectations, but I think they're going to end up going down to South Florida and losing. That'll get USF to 3-3 and Memphis to 4-2. We now get to our first Big Ten game of the week, and that is Northwestern versus Maryland. Northwestern is fresh off of a loss to Indiana, and their season's in a dangerous spot where they could easily spiral here. Maryland is 3-2, and getting to 4-2 would be humongous. They're currently favored by 10, and I think they win by about that much. UNLV just lost to Syracuse, and they now have to go on the road to play against Utah State. And I don't think Spencer Petras will be any match for the Rebels, and UNLV will get back to 5-1, and hopefully back on the path to the college football playoff. Utah versus Arizona State is a very interesting one in the Big 12. I almost said Pac-12. Yes, the two former conference foes will end up clashing in the Big 12 this season, and Arizona State's sort of been a breakout team under Kenny Dillingham, and Utah is reeling a little bit. Yes, they still are 4-1, but I'm not quite sure who to pick in this game, and I'm ultimately going to say Utah wins by 7, but I would not be surprised if Arizona State pulls off an upset here. Going over to Saturday, we talk about Washington versus Iowa. The Huskies are fresh off of a win against Michigan, and Iowa's fresh off of getting humiliated by Ohio State. Still though, Iowa is at home, and they rarely lose at Kinnick Stadium, and I'm still not sure what Washington is this year. Ultimately, I think Iowa wins in a close one, but this is a big identity game for Washington in my opinion. Going over to the SEC, we have to talk about South Carolina versus Alabama. Honestly, South Carolina's coming off a terrible loss to Ole Miss at home, and Bama's coming off the worst loss in school history, you could argue. Just kidding, the UL Monroe one was a lot worse. But either way, Bama's going to want to kill someone after this game, and I think Ryan Williams is going to go nuts, and Bama's going to cruise and just destroy South Carolina, and the Gamecocks picked the worst time to play against the Tide. Up next, number 10, Clemson will play against Wake Forest. Wake Forest is a team that's pretty much impossible to pick, as somehow last week they pulled off a miracle upset victory, and the week before that they lost at home to Louisiana. Still though, I don't think they're any match for number 10 Clemson, who's really figured it out over the last few weeks, and the Tigers end up cruising in this one. My Mizzou Tigers, who are now number 21 in the country, will play against UMass, and I'm not sure who decided to schedule this game. I think Mizzou ends up winning by 3 or 4 touchdowns on the road against UMass, but if somehow Mizzou loses this one, then at this point I'm just going to laugh hysterically, and it'll be a major fall from grace from the playoff hype they had in the preseason. Another game over in the Big Ten is Wisconsin versus Rutgers. It feels like there's a lot of evenly matched teams in the Big Ten right now, and this game's about as close as it gets. Wisconsin's starting to slowly figure it out, and Rutgers is coming off of their first loss where they did nothing against Nebraska. Honestly, while Rutgers is 4-1, I'm going to take Wisconsin in this game, and they're going to continue to fix their season and righten the ship. Georgia Tech is fresh off a victory over an undefeated Duke team, and North Carolina just got beat by Pitt. The Tar Heels have currently lost 3 in a row, and their season is falling out of control. Georgia Tech is a well-coached team, and I think the Yellow Jackets are going to go into Chapel Hill and give UNC their 4th straight loss. Now we get to some good games. Number 1 Texas, who's 5-0, will play against number 18 Oklahoma in the Red River Showdown. This game is now an SEC conference matchup, which is also weird to say, and while Oklahoma will be starting true freshman quarterback Michael Hawkins Jr., Texas should have Quinn Ewers back. Texas is currently favored by 14.5, and I think Oklahoma's actually going to play it closer, but I'm still going to put my money on Texas winning this game. Number 4 Penn State is currently 5-0 after beating down on UCLA last weekend, and USC is now 3-2 after back-to-back losses and a terrible one to Minnesota. If USC was undefeated, if USC was 4-1, honestly I would have picked them to take the upset here, but I still don't really know what is going on with the Trojans here. Penn State for now has shown enough for me to continue to pick them, and I think the Nittany Lions are going to go into USC and win that game. Stanford is 2-3, and while they did get an impressive victory over Syracuse a couple weeks ago, they have not really been able to figure it out lately. They'll play against number 11 Notre Dame at home, who's 4-1, and they are starting to bounce back from their terrible loss to NIU. Notre Dame has struggled to put teams away, and while they're favored by 23.5, I think they're going to win by less than that, but still get the W. California is now 3-2 after back-to-back heartbreaking losses to Florida State and Miami. Hopefully their luck will be able to change as they now go up to Pittsburgh and play the number 22 Pitt Panthers, who are the Cinderellas of this season so far. Eli Holstein and Desmond Reed are stars for the Pitt Panthers, and I think Pittsburgh cruises in this game, and California is going to start figuring out some answers here soon. This is an interesting one. 1-4 Purdue will play against 4-1 Illinois. Purdue has had a terrible year, and Illinois is having a solid year. They're currently ranked number 23 in the country, and the Illini are favored by 19.5. I think Illinois wins by at least 21 points in this game and gets to 5-1 and has a dark horse shot at the Big Ten. Purdue, on the other hand, is reeling, and Ryan Walters may not make it through the season. Louisville has now lost back-to-back high-profile games against Notre Dame and SMU, and they have to play another team that is sneaky good. Virginia is 4-1 for the first time in a long time, and led by sophomore quarterback Anthony Colandrea. Him and Tony Elliott are starting to figure things out in Charlottesville, and Virginia is currently 4-1. Right now, I'm going to actually go with the Virginia momentum and say that the Cavaliers get to 5-1 and Virginia could be a dark horse team in the ACC. I still haven't been all that impressed with Louisville, and as everyone knows, I can't stand the 7th-year quarterbacks, so I hope Louisville loses for that exact reason. Cincinnati and UCF are both in a spot where these teams need wins. Cincinnati's off of a bye week and a loss before that, and UCF just got beat down by Florida and got beat down by Colorado. The Knights went from 3-0 to all of a sudden being terrible, and they desperately need this win. Scott Satterfield really needs this win for Cincinnati to keep his job, and I'm going to say that the Bearcats go into UCF and win this game and get to 4-2, and UCF drops their 3rd in a row. Arizona was a popular pick to win the Big 12 in the preseason, while BYU is stuck towards the bottom. It's funny because Arizona's 3-2 and BYU's 5-0 and ranked number 14 in the country. The Cougars are going to host Arizona, and this game is going to be a lot of fun. Ultimately, I think BYU is going to get to 6-0, and they're going to try to make their run at the college football playoff, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Arizona pulls this one off because I do really like the Wildcats team. Mississippi State will travel on the road to Athens to play against Georgia, and it feels like Georgia's always playing everyone at home, but Mississippi State should have no chance in this game. They're the worst team in the SEC by far, and Georgia is hungry and ready to get another big win. They'll cruise to victory, and that game will be over by halftime. Florida-Tennessee is an interesting one. Florida just beat UCF and is starting to slowly figure things out, whereas Tennessee has been stopped the last 2 weeks. Oklahoma put a halt on the explosive offense, and Arkansas knocked them off in Fayetteville. How's Nico going to respond? I don't know. Tennessee is at home in this one, so I say they're probably going to win by 14, but Florida might be able to make things interesting. Washington State is 4-1, and they'll play on the road against a 3-2 Fresno State team. Jake Dicker has done a great job rebuilding the Cougars program, and I think they're going to go on the road and beat Fresno State and get to 5-1, and they might find themselves ranked after that. We'll see. Okay, so now we get to 2 of the biggest games of the night, as number 2 Ohio State will travel to number 3 Oregon. This is the biggest game of college football so far, and this game is going to be nuts. Autzen Stadium is going to be absolutely electric, and ultimately, despite that, I think Ohio State's going to go in and win by 3. I can't tell you why I think that, but I think Ohio State is the most complete team in college football this year, and ultimately, they're going to have a little bit more experience and talent, and they're going to go on the road and beat Oregon, and that game will be a lot of fun. Number 9 Ole Miss is traveling to LSU. I was really high on Jackson Dart and the Rebels early on, but after that loss to Kentucky, there were a lot of question marks in my head. After losing early to USC, LSU has bounced back and is currently 4-1, and Garrett Nussmeier is playing good football. With this game being in Death Valley, I'm going to say that LSU beats Ole Miss, and Ole Miss's playoff hopes are going to be in serious trouble in mid-October. After getting the biggest win in school history, Kentucky now has to deal with the fallout of this. Diego Pavia is a certified baller, but Kentucky's also been playing tough recently. They just beat Ole Miss on the road and almost knocked off Georgia. Kentucky's a really weird team this year, and I think they're going to put Vanderbilt back in their place, and Kentucky's going to get to 4-2, and Vandy's going to fall to 500. Wow, Iowa State's currently 5-0 and ranked number 11 in the country. I did not see that one coming. West Virginia, on the other hand, is slowly starting to figure things out after losing to Pitt and Penn State, and they're climbing their way back up the Big 12 standings. While I absolutely love Iowa State and the Cyclones, I just have a gut feeling that West Virginia is going to pull this game out and get to 4-2 and give Iowa State their first loss. That's just my hunch, but I hope Iowa State wins. Syracuse now has to play against NC State. After being preseason ranked, NC State has completely fallen apart, and Syracuse has been pretty solid under Fran Brown. They're fresh off of a top 25 win against UNLV, and I'm not sure what the status is of Grayson McCall, but I don't really think it matters, as I think Syracuse wins this game regardless and gets to 5-1. Minnesota's fresh off of an upset victory over USC, which no one saw coming. Now they get to travel to UCLA. I think UCLA's played 4 straight Power 5 teams, and I think they're going to add another loss to that. Minnesota isn't good by any means, but I just think they're better than UCLA, and ultimately the Golden Gophers get a victory there. Alright, for our last game of the night, we just talked about number 18 Kansas State versus Colorado. This is a game I've been eyeing for quite some time now, as this is going to be electric. My one worry for Kansas State is to see how Avery Johnson responds. The last time he was in a tough environment at BYU, he played terrible, and Colorado's not going to make it easy on him. I currently like the Buffaloes, and I think they're really solid, but I'm going to pick K-State in an upset here. I think Avery Johnson will have learned from his BYU experience, and then he's going to go in and beat Colorado. I'm still not 100% sold on the Buffaloes, and I do really like K-State, so I'm going to say the Wildcats pull that one off. So yeah, today I just made predictions for Week 7 of the college football season, and be sure to let me know what you think I got right and wrong down in the comment section below. Also, before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.